Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting week where we're going to talk about the league. I am your host, of course, Sigtal Lord, and I am so excited to be joined by yet again Prowler 222 and Arcade Soda. Uh, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing pretty great. And how about you, Prowler?
Yeah, I'm doing great after watching that new Rise video that League put out.
Oh, be still my heart. That animation. I want them to animate my funeral.
I
I
haven't
don't
had
know
a
if
chance to look that one up, check that one out yet.
Oh well, hype for the Worlds happening next month, so everybody go check that out on LOL Esports website. While we're plugging them, let me go ahead and plug our official online sponsor for this episode is Old Host. Old Host is a site where you can build your own website. You can support the LCUS by signing up with Old Host. Go to www.oldhost.net and click promotions for details. For every sign up using the coupon code LCUS, 100% of all profits will be donated back to us. Time is limited for this promotion, so go sign up today and support the LCUS. Speaking of support, a transition into a transition into a transition. That is what I failed to do this past week. I don't think I could have supported an addiction or any other more bad choices if you look at my play versus non lives last week.
I think you're being a little too hard on yourself. It was a game of subs, and that can change a lot of the game.
Yeah, having two subs on each team was really, really impactful for both teams because some of them were extremely short notice, so you don't really get that much playtime with them to build synergy. So it was just kind of an interesting matchup to watch. It was impressive to see Brandana pop off again, kind of like how he did game two last week. Um, but other than that, there's not a huge amount that can actually be taken away from those games.
I agree, and it changed the team compositions. I think for how the teams were designed and how they've been practiced. I know that's true at least in the case of Northern Storm. Uh, with with that being said, taking all that out, we've talked about Brandana. Shout out to my boy Gregosaurus. That was some insane thresh play. And then you're like, oh, you want a turn? Sure, give me Braum. That was just that you were all in my head. It's like you had built a hearth right at my eyebrows. So please never do that again.
And then moving on to set two, we had Blitzkrieg and the Gale Force in what was probably the two most lopsided matches. Blitzkrieg came out really strong. I think they're a fantastic team, and Gale Force looked a little uncomfortable, if I'm honest. Stelio Cantos had two really good games playing into washed up top laners, very accomplished. But I think you saw the bans targeted towards mid lane at Tilted Snorlax really affected a lot of what Gale Force was trying to do, and they didn't look like they had the synergy that I was expecting, honestly.
I don't know if that was really indicative of really what to expect. Keep in mind this was their week one. Talking about this match also, I'm not sure if it's the same person, but we did get two awesome Twitch Prime subscriptions. WD Fan 13, my ADC for Northern Storm, my boy, holler at you. Thank you for the sub. And Lofi Eel, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub. I'm not sure if you're Lofi Senpai, but wonderful last week, and thank you for the subscription. To double back after the hype there, Gale Force just in I don't know if it was really indicative of them. Looking at that matchup, I I expected more out of Fat Jackalope based off of some of the research I've done into his play style, into what his normal pool is. I feel like him and Poison Ivy definitely have some potential synergy with the pools that they have that line up. and that really didn't go off this week. Maybe next week could be something different. I don't know if maybe they prioritized practices different because they did get that week 2 start. Didn't want to psych themselves out or perhaps get too over prepared. You know how it can be. Get yourself too hyped up. But I don't think this was the real Gale Force. If Gale Force is a hurricane and they're coming for the LCUS, I think right now we're probably at Category 3. Next week, potential for Category 5, but I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe it could get kicked down to a tropical depression.
Yeah, and Stalio did perform really well in that top lane against washed up top laner. So definitely a position to watch, and I definitely think we could see some wins coming out of them in very quickly here in the weeks to come. And kind of rolling off of that one into the final set of the night, final set of last week, we had our only 1-1 finish of the night between Option 12 and White Wolf Gaming, which both teams in their respective wins had really good macro play and just kind of showed that that's a large portion of how each team wins their games. Even with Game 2 more specifically, White Wolf, we had managed to get a few early leads. At one point I was 4-0 on Callista, but kind of just to show how good Option 12 is at their macro play, even though I was 4-0, we still lost first tower in our lane. So it was kind of because we had a lot of good early plays that I believe we were able to stay ahead and manage to pull out the win. Game 2. Game 1 was just a really kind of a crushing defeat because it almost felt like we couldn't really do much because of Option 12 just had such a great grasp on the game.
They did, but at the same time, I mean, you guys didn't have too much I don't think there was much to scoff about. They prioritized the hyper carry, aka you. They prioritized Jinx with a comp that really couldn't deal much damage outside of you unless they got particularly fed. I think I was just greeting you and champ select probably very aggressively with these picks like Caitlyn super safe, Lulu could manage you very well. Your game 2 though, man, I loved that Callista Thresh bot lane. That was the stuff.
Yeah, and in Game 1, we did go a lot more for the late game team fights and whatnot, but we couldn't really get there because with the Jinx pick, I was playing a little too safe, but also Ace and Ashway just did a really good job in the bot lane, punishing so hard for me playing so defensive, and they got ahead and definitely helped secure the win there.
And I think both teams won their games in Champ Select. Game 1, I think we just had you guys beat where we were able to move around a lot better. And Game 2, we had no synergy with our picks. It was actually really disappointing that we were not able to come up with a better comp. Looking back on it, we had 2 or 3 different comps that we would have played into the Nocturne Shen that was showing, and that we didn't was kind of sad. It's we weren't prepared for it, and I think that really showed in our games.
And another really important thing to note about this matchup is this was White Wolf. I believe it was White Wolf's first single game victory over Option 12 since Option 12 has been a team. So
I can confirm that. Congratulations to you, by the way. It's nice to go 1-1 against someone you've been shit talking for the past week.
Well, folks, I'm gonna pass it on over. Let's get hyped for this upcoming week, and I think the best way to do that is to overreact to what we've seen. So, does anybody want to overreact? Throw into panic mode? DEFCON 5?
I'll start by putting it out there. I think what you saw with the macro play between Option 12 and White Wolf, and the fact that they went 1-1, really speaks to how they're playing at a level above some of the other teams in the LCS right now. And I being on Option 12, that kind of sounds pretentious. It's not. It's just these two teams happen to be having the best macro play. I think they're showing the best synergy between the picks, and a lot of that goes to a lot of extra practice time that we haven't seen all the other teams necessarily putting forth. We kind of touched on it earlier. I think a team like Gale Force, where they haven't been practicing as much, really shows through, especially with this being essentially their week 1. So I'll put option 12 and White Wolf at the top, and then Arcane Soda. What do you think for the rest of the list here?
Well, another thing why White Wolf specifically is more at the top, because Nine Lives is also up there, showing they had incredible resilience and ability to bounce back after their pretty dismal defeat by our hands. But also, White Wolf is currently 2 ties for their record, which Option 12, 9 Lives, and Blitzkrieg are all tied with 1 win, 1 tie. That being said, Blitzkrieg isn't too far out of contention. Just behind 9 Lives.
I can definitely see that. Sig, you want to round it out? Or are you looking at the teams that are on the bottom here that need to be kind of working their way back up?
I'm not gonna count Phoenix out. I don't think that they're anywhere near done. I would put them with Gale Force as huge opportunities to rise up. A huge overreaction. Gale Force weren't prepared at all. I'm excited to see them prepared. And speaking of prepared, you know what keeps me pumped and hype? Getting away from the real world. Sometimes you got to step away, be somebody else for a little while. And one of our great sponsors, Nero, lets you do that. Nero allows you to take the massive battle arena offline too with Nero LARP. Nero LARP is a live-action roleplay that has chapters all over the United States. Visit NeroLARPonline.com for more information.
Alrighty, moving on here. One of the things that I'm more excited to talk about is the patch notes. Something I kind of hover over and almost plan my every other week around. And this one, it kind of followed patch 8.18, where there's not too many things going on, and mostly it's buffs to different champions. Started off, we have Darius and Fiora buffs, which to me, those 2 champions are designed to lane well against tanks, and this feels like something to prevent tanks from being dominant in the world's meta, and I think that's to keep viewership up and to make the games more exciting.
I think that would be a safe assumption to make for the entirety of this patch. Kha'Zix, Elise, they're wonderful to watch, very fun and exciting. Elise especially, you just watch for the web to go. The support man, Tom getting adjust. I won't call it a nerf. It's going to be an adjust and play style. I love the Pyke and the Thresh buffs, Janna buffs. It's just playmakers all around. We're going to see nothing but 30-minute team fights. I'm so ready for this world.
Yeah, and we also saw a couple buffs to Jarvan and Nunu. Prowler, what do you think, being a jungler? Do you think there's going to be a rise in priority in these champions that just got buffed, or do you think it's going to kind of get scoffed at and people are kind of going to stick with what they've been doing?
So the Nunu buff, I don't think will affect the world's meta. I don't think it'll affect meta much at all. The change to the snowball was to add an AP ratio, and the reason you have to do that is because currently, if you hit all 9 of the snowballs off of that and got the root, it was equal to the damage of 1 super minion auto attack. And that's just pathetic for a champion's ability. So that definitely needed to happen. I think Nunu just needed that overall. I don't think that's, with this kind of forced meta that they're trying to put through. The Jarvan one, I don't see changing jungle Jarvan too much. Honestly, to me, this is about making a lane Jarvan. Again, kind of a, what more can we put in the top lane to prevent people from playing tanks and to create more playmakers. So Jarvan, again, always able to roam around the map. His ult is great for catching people out and creating plays. I think that's what you're looking at here, and I don't think it'll affect the jungle meta too much. The Kha'Zix and Elise buffs, I think are much more designed to affect the jungle and try to create early game playmakers and make games snowball out of control or literally make them really exciting.
And what about you, Sig? What do you think about the support buffs? Do you think we're going to see a rise in priority in those champions as well? I know we already kind of have a lot of impact, especially on Thresh and Tom Kench, but do you think we're going to see possible picks bans almost every game, every set? What do you take on this?
I think that in in regards to the LCUS, I think it's honestly interesting how any impact on Pyke or on Tom haven't traditionally affected the support lane much. So that's going to be exciting to see exactly how that mutates the LCUS meta. If I remember correctly, Shaden, who played in prior splits, had a ridiculous Pyke ADC match. He might have been when he was playing top, but it was a ridiculous Pyke match and probably the highest success rate with Pyke in the LCUS. And Tom Kench, like as a member of Northern Storm, I know that my boy Shaken Not Stirred, he loves Tom. I think that this definitely could be some big changes for him. Looking how aggressive he goes with it. And with the rest of the playmakers, most definitely, especially in a meta right now where Rakan is thriving, adding more playmakers to the mix, it's definitely going to make it some very exciting matchups. Just in any kind of micro meta that we're going to describe.
All right, and I just want to touch on the Kog'Maw buff here because it's not really much of a buff. Kog'Maw's kind of not really been in that great of a spot for a little while now. But we see he gets 5 more base movement speed and 100 extra range for his ult at level 1 and 50 at level 2. So I don't think we're going to be seeing Kog'Maw any more than we have been because I just doesn't feel like it's enough to get him up to where he needs to be to compete with like Kai'Sa and Xayah and Jinx and all these other champions that are doing really well right now.
I want to agree with you, but I think that there's also some contention there with the Janna buffs, where hers were to her movement speed, and I think with the way her passive works, there's some real potential for Kog'Maw to be a major threat in the right situations with the right comp, and that 100 range increase, which was what the buff was, I think could have high impact in a whole lot of these siege comps that we're seeing played, just in solo queue in general, in higher level play. I think it will trickle down to the LCUS. I'm hoping to see it. I'm not going to say we're playing it, but I'm hoping we see it because it's fun to watch Kog'Maw play.
As long as it's not Pugmaw, because when you get Kog'Maw with Lethal Tempo and Pugmaw, it just makes my head hurt, if I'm honest.
Okay, so I heard if I make it to the final or playoffs against Option 12, play Pugmaw every game.
I mean, you'll just have a tilted jungler, that's all.
That's enough for me. That's a win.
Well, folks, we want to move on and talk about our Week 3 matchups, but before we can do that, we need to talk a little bit about Foster Adventure. Foster Adventure is one of the proud sponsors of the LCUS and brought you this podcast today. Foster Adventure enhances the lives of teens in care by funding social, athletic, and educational opportunities and items that give a sense of normalcy to teens in care, promoting friendships, life skills, higher education, and hope in their future. Donate today. Check out the button check out the button below in the Twitch options. Also, you can check out our YouTube page where there's a link as well. So, Week 3, I've decided I'm going to honor the bye. I'm not going to show up and play. So, you guys can have this week to prepare emotionally for when Northern Storm comes back to take down some Option 12, to give y'all that height adjustment you deserve. Take a few inches off that ego. But in the meantime, tell me about this White Wolf Phoenix game.
I'll let you take this one, Prowler.
You don't want to talk about your own team?
I will. They're garbage.
Yeah, they showed that winning one game over option 12. So I think Phoenix with the bye, I hope is able to kind of address some of the issues that they had week 1 against option 12. They're another one of those teams that looked like, week 1 there was a lot of sloppy play, and I think that comes down to not having a lot of time to practice with your team, and not necessarily being on the same page in pick and ban. I think with a week to kind of correct that, Phoenix is going to come out firing. For me, like the mid lane's going to be a fun matchup. It's primed into Von Hohenheim, and it's been a good match the past 2 splits. Like it's been interesting to watch. But I want to see the bot lane, and I think White Wolf has a real chance to win that. And if they do, I think this game could be very even. But I still see White Wolf pulling out a 2-0 victory here. I don't know that Phoenix is going to have those macro things corrected, and with White Wolf showed last week, they are a force to be reckoned with in the LCUS, especially right at this very moment. So I think Phoenix is on the rise. I think White Wolf is already there, and I think that's going to show this week.
Maybe. White Wolf is a strong powerhouse this split in particular. They are performing incredibly well. But I think the greatest mistake would be to count out Von Hohenheim, Goonstomp, Port Swimmer, Alan Z. Tardis. I mean, these guys are powerhouses in the annals of LCUS history, and it's you can't count them out. I don't think that now is the time to do that.
I think one of the crucial things for this matchup is going to be how Van Hohenheim performs, because if he performs like he did week 1, I don't know if it was more so an overperformance by Lysimachus or an underperformance by Van Hohenheim or some mixture of both, but if he doesn't show up, I feel like this game becomes incredibly difficult for Phoenix. So I feel like there's a lot of weight on specifically his shoulders. Goonstomp is definitely another one of their saving graces, and their bot lane is typically a little bit underrated. So I feel like it's going to be a very close matchup, but I do feel like we're going to be able to pull out the win, both games, for a 2-0 victory. However, the coin does disagree with both of us, Prowler. The coin and its all-knowing guesses has predicted Phoenix to win 2-0.
The coin must know something that I don't. Praise be unto him.
I mean, the coin knew something we both didn't last week, so.
That's very true.
Though the prophet coin did falter in this week past, praise be unto its name this week, as maybe it will shine some mercy onto Phoenix.
Set 2, I'll just kind of set it up. It's option 12 into Blitzkrieg, and I've predicted a 1-1 here pretty generically. I'll let you guys talk about the match, but for me, the most interesting thing is going to be Greatbeard of Odin into washed up top laner. As a teammate, I saw him play very well into him last split, and I'm actually really hyped for the rematch.
Yeah, and Greatbeard Odin had a really good week 1, and he also performed really well last week on the Scion, especially. So I feel like he has a really good chance to do pretty well in that lane. And I feel like I also went with a 1-1 for my prediction here because both teams have shown they've been able to have some real macro control and a lot of really good map play. And it's more so a 1-1 because I don't know how high to put Blitzkrieg just yet. Option 12 is very clearly at the top, but I'm just not sure how much Blitzkrieg can compete. So I'm leaving it at a 1-1 because I feel like if Blitzkrieg does take game 1, Option 12 is going to be able to adapt and take back game 2.
I want to agree with you. As someone that lost a game to Team Blitzkrieg, I know that they're capable, but I think the thing that Option 12 has that's going to be the deciding factor in this is in the mid lane. with with his ability to play mages like Nivea, Oriana. I think it's going to be a much safer bet, and he's going to be able to not have to have constant jungle pressure to go up against Exia, who is just assassin after assassin. I'm really thinking that that's going to be the deciding factor. I'm giving it to option 12-2-0.
And the coin seems to agree with you.
Blessed be its name.
Final match of the night that'll be coming up on Sunday. Neither of us are in this one, so we can be really impartial. We have 9 Lives into Gale Force. I think we've kind of touched on both teams where we feel like 9 Lives is in that, upper echelon of the LCS currently, and Gale Force hasn't shown it yet. So I'm going to give a 2-0 to 9 Lives here. Brandana's looked incredible in 3 out of the 4 games at least. And I think if Fat Jackalope comes to play like he did last week, I think Brandana's going to get a big lead, and that's not a good way to play against 9 Lives. You got to be able to do something into Brandana.
Yeah, and I agree entirely here, but I also feel like one of the things that needs to be mentioned is Stelio Cantos did perform really well last week despite their 0-2 loss. So if he manages to show up and perform really well again, there is a very good chance that he potentially can either start a snowball or carry a game and take a victory. But I still do feel like the odds are, just based off of what we've seen, in 9 Lives' favor. So I'm going with them 2-0.
I can agree with that. I think with the last week, one of the things that also played in against Gale Force is with Stelio playing tanks. He's by and large like their most senior player, highest ranked player on the team. He really needs to be. I want to see him on some carries. I want to see that incredible play that we saw, but I want to see it on a roaming top laner that's throwing TP every time it's on off cooldown. So I think that could be a real deciding factor and might get them the one game that they need to start going off. I don't know if this week's a 2-0 for him, but I'm going to give it 1-1.
And if he's not going to roam, one of his signature picks in the top lane is Nasus. And I would not be surprised to see that come out against 9 Lives. If Brandana doesn't get the peel from his teammates against Nasus, you can be one-shot by, a good one who's got 300, 400 stacks at 20 minutes. And that can be a real problem when your ADC is your star player. So that will be the interesting dynamic is, these teams are kind of tilted against each other where the, Gale Force is top lane heavy and 9 Lives is bot lane heavy. And it'll be weird kind of seeing the match turn around those two different positions.
And the coin had predicted 9 Lives would win this matchup 2-0.
Coin going with nothing but 2-0s this week.
A good coin only deals in absolutes.
He was extremely partial this week.
Well, folks, we're going to go to our question and answer, and this question and answer section is brought by you. You brought the questions, so we're here to answer them. Let's start off. Who has the best macro play in Split 4 so far?
Hands down, option 12.
I think we're all going to agree on this one. It's such a powerhouse when it comes to macro play.
Yeah, as a humble member of option 12, we have Ace 10301 as our shot caller, and when you have a voice that's so good at, picking apart the other team, makes it easy to perform well macro.
Yeah, and we also had another question from Greg, just asking what the overall win rate for Teemo is in the LCS after last week's shenanigans. Well, I did a little bit of diving, and the overall win rate is 4-2, and he's been picked every split. Split 1, he was picked in the semifinals by Huge, and they won. Split 2, he was picked in week 1 and they lost, again picked by Huge, and then he was picked again in week 5 of split 2 by Ashway against Huge, and Ashway had won. And then split 3, RTC picked it twice, once in week 2 against Phoenix with a win, and again in week 6 against take the Lantern with a loss. And then Huge once again picked it this past week, subbing in against Northern Storm for a victory.
Very in detail response to that little devil. So thank you for the question, Gregosaurus. We're going to take one more question. Which player is being slept on the most right now? I'm going to call it out, J-Dog. You not only asked this question, but I think the fact that every week that you have questions and you're asking these deep, thought-provoking questions about the LCUS and not just general league questions, you have a next level awareness compared to most of the players that aren't doing a podcast about the LCUS. So I don't know. I'm waiting for I want to hear about J-Dog's notebook if y'all are feeling me. It feels like you got a little bit of that elimination going on right now, where you're all know about our personal lives. So take down the cameras, quit with the questions. I'm watching you.
Yeah, and I'm gonna give this one to Gotta Get Lucky. After another new position that he's played in the LCUS, he's performing pretty well once again. So it's really impressed me to see that he's been able to do pretty well across so many different positions over such a short period of time.
And I'm going to throw it onto CB Hickey. CB was a player that we saw play a lot of Galio in Split 3, and it always seemed like you could kind of just rely on him to play that pick. Him pulling out the Orianna and doing very well on it adds another dimension to his game, and I'm glad to see him evolving as a player as the LCUS goes on. Sig, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, sorry, folks. I had myself muted. I just gave the best ending on Earth as well as my social security number. So you guys lost. Folks, thank you for joining us for this wonderful, wonderful podcast we're so happy to bring to you. Thank you for all our wonderful sponsors. As always, you can check us out every Sunday at 5:30 Central Standard Time, 6:30 Eastern Time to watch all these great players duke it out. Also, check later in this week where I'm going to be joining our commissioner, Trufflesaurus, for Top vs. Bot. You can see that on YouTube. We'd love for you to stop by the page and subscribe. For all our Twitch Prime subscribers out there, again, thank you so much. You're what keeps all this alive and worth doing. And, folks, as always, thank you. And I hope that you'll join me next week when we talk about the league. Have a great week.